Alright, so I want to talk about so what voicings, about kind of what they are, how they're constructed, how to practice them, and in what contexts you can effectively use them. For those who aren't familiar, when we're talking so what voicings, we're referencing the tune So What off the classic Miles Davis album, Kind of Blue. And we're not talking about the bass melody as much as we're talking about these voicings, which we attribute to Bill Evans. Um, but we're in D Dorian, and just what the voicings are is the bottom four notes are all separated by a perfect fourth, and on the top there's a major third. If we're thinking from kind of bottom to top, we're starting on E, which is the second scale degree. Up a perfect fourth is A, up a perfect fourth is D, up a perfect fourth is G, and then up a major third is B. So we end up with this sound, and we move in So What, we move the whole thing down a step. And then in the bridge, it goes up a half step to E flat Dorian. And the same thing, just up a half step. So yeah, if you're thinking bottom up, it's built from the third. I like to voice it with three notes in my right, two with my left, because you end up with actually a second inversion triad here. Another way to think about it would be like a G triad over E and A. But so that's what the voicing is. I like to think, instead of building up from the bottom, I think down from the top. So it's B down to A, the sixth scale degree down to the fifth. And actually, once you've kind of played around with these voicings a little bit and gotten familiar with how they feel under your fingers, you'll have to think a lot less about what notes are in the center of the chord, and you can think about the top or the bottom note of the chord. So if I'm thinking C minor, I know my sixth is A. F sharp, my sixth is D sharp. A, my sixth is F sharp. So first, you've just got this voicing, so you want to practice, like any of your voicings, you want to practice it through all 12 keys. But since I'm lazy, I like to think about how much extra mileage I can get out of any voicings that I know. So if you know kind of about chord scale relationships, and Dorian, Mixolydian, major, all that stuff, in this case, this voicing doesn't really explicitly imply a tonality. It's a little vague, so it's really easy to apply this voicing to other situations. We know our D Dorian comes out of our C major scale. No accidentals. So our G Mixolydian also comes out of that scale. So we can take these same voicings and apply them in a G dominant context. And since we know that our G dominant, G Mixolydian is also equivalent more or less to our C major, we can apply these voicings in C major. So in D minor, I'm thinking B the sixth down to A the fifth. But if I'm applying this over a dominant, I'm thinking the third of B down to the second of A. And if I'm thinking major, I'm thinking the seventh B down to the sixth A. So you want to practice this through all Dorian minors, but you also want to practice it through all majors, all dominants. So, a few different ways I like to practice voicing, chromatically, just kind of get a feel for it under your fingers. practice this chromatically, etc. And then pick specific keys. Say, okay, E flat major, I'm thinking 7 to 6. 7 is D. A dominant, I'm thinking 3 to 2, which is C sharp. Ooh. There it is. And I always like to put my kind of McCoy fifth on the bottom just to get that sense of tonality. So this is what that voicing is, and not only can you use it over Dorian, but you can use it over Mixolydian and over major. So let's talk application over tunes. First, I want to talk a little theory. Can't remember if it's like freshman, sophomore music theory, they talk about planing, about two types of planing, diatonic planing and chromatic planing. Diatonic planing is kind of taking this shape and not worrying about the relationship, the intervallic relationship between the notes, and just worrying about the tonality. So if we're in D Dorian, it's the easiest to demonstrate, for me at least, in D Dorian, because you're just taking this shape and you're just continuing with it, not worrying about maintaining the three perfect fourths with the major third on top. Now chromatic planing is where you keep those perfect fourth relationships constant. So here, if we wanted to keep C on the top, so you start to get a little bit kind of outside of the chord. A great example of this is McCoy Tyner on the intro to Short Story off of Joe Henderson's record In and Out. Let's give that a listen. Here. So we're in C minor, which would be the sixth is A, going to the fifth of G. But what McCoy does is he takes this melodic line and instead of saying I'm only going to play this A and G, I'm going to and the last voicing's a little bit different, but so that's one interesting thing that you can do, is you can harmonize a melodic idea. So application, kind of using, how do we use this over tunes? After you've practiced, just the voicings themselves in major, minor, and dominant, how do we start putting it over tunes? Obviously, So What, it works over. But really, any tune that's got kind of a modal feel is a good place to put this. So like Softly, as in a Morning Sunrise. Flat major. that sound, which is very much inside the harmony, all inside that C minor sound. Or you could use it over a dominant tune like Passion Dance. Ah. And then another way of using it is in that kind of McCoy Tyner way from short story, where you're taking a melodic idea and not worrying about if every note inside each of those voicings is strictly within the harmony, but just worrying about the resolution of the line. So going back to softly. Another cool thing to do is you can use this in conjunction with other fourth voicings, which I was kind of which I can talk more about that in another video. But these are some different ways you can use the So What voicings. Yeah.